That's our whole goal with this show, is teaching you how important temperature is. And if you don't follow the correct temperatures, you may just lose your temper. Thank you for joining me on Don't Lose Your Temper. I'm Daleen Coleman. I'm a Le Cordon Bleu London trained chef, a professional chocolatier, and the owner of Delightful Chocolat in San Diego, California. Today, we're gonna be focusing on tempering chocolate, using some ganache, some fun things. But one of the things we're gonna make are these cute little bunny eggs, and with a lot of details, so our temper needs to be spot on, so follow along and I'll show you how to make this. We're gonna start off here with the basics, tempering your chocolate. Fundamental skills, I'm gonna teach you the easiest way to do it, which is the seeding method. So we're gonna use a bain-marie. We're gonna get a nice sauna here, nice facial. That's necessary, but we wanna definitely keep the lid on our pot until we're ready to use it, because water and chocolate are nemesis. They hate each other. Today we are going to focus on one of my favorite things, truffles. And with Easter coming up, what a better time to use these beautiful bunnies, Easter bunny eggs. They're so cute. And we're not gonna stop there. That is too small. We have to go bigger, huh? What do you think of these guys? Super fun. So we're gonna be playing with making a beautiful centerpiece. But the cool thing about this is it's not so much the molds I'm using. I want to teach you how to use polycarbonate molds like these. You can use any size, any shape, any design. I'm just going to teach you the steps so you can make whatever it is that you want to make step by step without losing your temper. We're going to see if I can go through this whole episode without losing mine. Let's see. I'm a redhead, so you never know. We're going to start off. As you can see, this is steaming. We want to get our pot on our cute little pan on the pot as quickly as possible to reduce the amount of moisture in the air. We're gonna take our chocolate. This is untempered chocolate, but it is in a crystallized state. It's called calettes, and you can get them from all different companies, but I'm using this one. This is about a 65% calette, and what a calette means is that it is perfectly crystallized. This is the easiest way to temper your chocolate, so I want you to have success. You're gonna follow along here. I'm gonna take my chocolate, all right? And I'm gonna make sure my pot is steaming. That is the most important thing, is get it nice and hot. I'm gonna turn on a little bit. It's cooling down. Make sure that the water is boiling before you turn it off. We want it nice and hot so that the pot gets nice and hot, and we'll gradually melt our chocolate. What we call this is a bain-marie method. Okay, so this is a basic bain-marie. We have a nice sturdy pot here. And then we have a smaller stainless steel bowl to sit right on top. The most important thing to remember is not to let the bowl touch the water. That's really critical. If it touches the water, it can overheat and it can burn your chocolate, which is honestly, other than burnt popcorn, this is a throw it right out and it stinks up your house forever, okay? So just don't do that. I've got a pretty good boil here. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off. We want this pot to be off the heat. Okay, we don't want to sit there and keep heating it up. It will overheat your bowl, which will burn your chocolate. I'm going to do I'm going to go ahead and pour it right in here. So we are going with 500 grams of calettes just to start. That's quite a bit of chocolate. These beautiful. I almost want to just shove them in my mouth, but I'm not. We're just going to gently mix. We don't want to leave our chocolate sitting in one spot for too long, as it can burn. So we want to keep these calettes moving. You can also use block chocolate. If you get some really nice blocks, you can chop it up. Just finely, make sure there's not big chunks. You see it's melting pretty quick. Just gonna keep working on this. It takes a little time. It can take a few minutes to get it to fully melt, but we want it to go nice and slow. Once this all heats up, then we're gonna be adding our unmelted calettes. Like I said, these have perfect crystals in them. So what those crystals are is a polymer crystal, a beta crystal. We're gonna be adding it to our melted chocolate. And what that's gonna do is it's going to, as I melt, it kills off all those crystals. This is gonna introduce crystals back in, which we're gonna activate them at the right temperature, which is we want this to get up to 45 degrees. If you don't have one of these fun things, I love this. This is really fun, because I can just push and I can see exactly where it's at. This is only at 28.6, so we've got a little ways to go. We're gonna bring this up to 45 degrees. and then we'll completely get it off the heat and start gradually introducing our unmelted chocolate so that we can crystallize it. I absolutely love chocolate, but we're gonna really explore other things in our other episodes. We're gonna go all the way up to sugar work. Today, I'm not gonna necessarily do the caramel. We're gonna be bringing caramel into this episode, which is my second favorite thing in this whole world. We're gonna be bringing this into another episode where we're gonna do some sugar work. So make sure you subscribe so that you'll know what's coming up next. All right, so this is coming along a little bit. In the meanwhile, we're gonna talk about our molds. These are called polycarbonate molds. They're super strong. I personally don't like using the little silicone ones or the rubbery ones. You won't get that beautiful shine on them that you get with the polycarbonate mold, okay? So that's the difference between getting a beautiful professional looking truffle versus just something that's just delicious to eat. It is really melting, you guys. I don't know if you can see that, but it's really starting to melt. I'm gonna go ahead and check its temperature. It's at 33.8, and it still has some seed in it, but that's gonna melt out pretty quick. I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna polish my mold so that it doesn't stick and it gets shiny, because one of the things what will definitely make you lose your temper is when you're trying to get these guys out of the mold and they just stick in there, or they come out partially and then half your filling's falling out. It's really a shame. The first thing you are going to need is a good old hair dryer. You probably have one of those at home. I know I have a few. My daughters love to steal mine, so I'm constantly buying new ones. And I'm just gonna have it on warm. I don't wanna overheat my polycarbonate mold, but I wanna warm it up a little bit. And the purpose of that is in case you have any water spots, maybe used it before, washed it, and has a little cocoa butter left on it. We need to get that off and get it super shiny. We just wanna get anything that could possibly be inside our mold to come off, so it's nice and clean. Just gonna gently hit it. Like I said, I don't wanna overheat it. This is the best tool. This is just simple fiber cloth. I know some people like to use the little cotton pads. The reason I don't is sometimes you can get little cotton bits left on there, and that's kind of gross. See, it has so many details on it. We wanna make sure all those details come out and we don't have any weird spots. I always, once I polish, because I'm normally polishing so many molds, I always face them down when I'm done. I'm gonna set that one down. Again, check on my chocolate. Multitasking. It's a little bit about me. I trained for over a year at Le Cordon Bleu in London, where I met some of the most fabulous people, including our teaching chefs. They were awesome. Hard on us, but that definitely got me prepared to work in industry. So thank you guys if you're watching. Appreciate all of you, especially Chef Julie, shout out. There we go. I got several of these to do, so I'll be doing them as we go. Look at this chocolate. I know it's not overheated because I still have some of the seeds in there, some of the original chocolate. It's right at 40, so we're getting there. So if you love chocolate as much as I do, that's an ah moment right there. The biggest thing is when you look at this, a lot of people just think chocolate, something that you really love to eat, but it's so much more special than that. It's come from far away to be grown. Then it goes to the chocolate makers and they have these recipes down. I work with so many wonderful chocolate makers. We're just about there. We're at 43 degrees. We are going to continue polishing. I always flip over so I know I've already polished them. This has gotta be ready. It looks gorgeous. 45, it's time to go off the heat. So this is a really important step, is you wanna have your lid ready to go. You want to use a little cloth. And the reason for that is we don't wanna drip water all over the place. Chocolate and water don't mix. Get water in your chocolate, it will start to seize and you can't come back from that. You can't retemper it, so that's a real shame. So where I'm at is I'm at 45 degrees. I'm gonna take this chocolate, the little bit, I normally do this was 500 grams. I'm gonna have about, 200 grams ready to go. And I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit in at a time. I don't wanna dump it all in because I may not need all of it. So once I have my calettes in there, I'm just gonna start stirring them. And I'm not gonna be gentle. I don't wanna bring too much air, but the most important thing is we are melting out the calettes and we're getting those crystals to start multiplying, okay? Because when we melted this out to 45, we killed off all of those crystals. They're really important. Those actually come from cocoa butter. A lot of people are like, you know, when you get chocolate bars or anything, why does it have cocoa butter in it? Well, it's really important. It's the second element that comes out of the cacao pod. You have your mass. This is 60%, which means it has 60% mass in it. The other thing is that cocoa butter is so critical. We need it to trigger those crystals so that it can actually go hard. We don't want it to stay in this state forever. We want it to get nice, hard, and shiny. So that's what we're doing. We're literally tempering the cocoa butter, not the mass. I'm gonna check its temper. It's at 41. Hasn't dropped down significantly, but all of those seeds have melted. So I'm gonna add some more. I may not need it all, so I don't wanna go dumping it all in, because if you dump it all in and it cools down too fast, then you end up with little lumpies, unmelted chocolate, which is really frustrating, especially when you know you have it in temper. It's reading right. You're like, oh, it looks good, but it has those chunky bits. No worries. Don't go throwing it in the trash, getting frustrated. Put it back on your bain-marie for 5 seconds at a time, not too long. You don't want to throw it out of temperature, but you definitely want to get it warmed up a little bit so it can start melting again. Typically, it needs to be above 35 degrees Celsius for it to melt. Okay, I'm at 38. I'm at 36. I'm gonna add just a little bit more because all of my seeds have melted out. Another way you can do this, some people like it if they're okay with the microwave, but if you do have a microwave, you can do the exact same thing with a bowl, a plastic microwave-safe bowl. You can melt it in the microwave 30 seconds at a time until it reaches that same 45 degrees, and then start adding your cowlettes. The exact same method. I just personally like using the bain-marie method. You have a little more control and less risk of burning it. So since it's reached 35, the last thing I want to do is add more cowlettes, because then nothing's going to really melt after that, and I'm going to end up with those lumps. It's okay if you have some left over. It really depends on a lot of conditions. Again, we're talking temperatures here. That's our whole goal with this show, is teaching you how important temperature is. And if you don't follow the correct temperatures, you may just lose your temper. And as I'm stirring, I'm really agitating it. I want those crystals to hit each other. So when we first melt out our chocolate, those crystals are kind of like loose and all over the place. As we hit them, they start to bond to each other and form really nice structure. And that's what we're looking for. You can't see it, but we will see it once we start pouring this chocolate into our beautiful molds. We are at 33 exactly. With dark chocolate, we want it to get to that 32. That is very important. With milk chocolate, we just kind of reduce it by 2 degrees. Milk chocolate is 30 degrees Celsius, and white chocolate, you want to get down to 28 degrees. A little bit more to go. We are there. We're exactly at 32. Now I'm going to show you how we know if it's good or not. We're going to take our parchment sheet, a little square, and we are going to dip it in and fold it open. So I like to put it on parchment, but I also like to use a spatula. So I do a double test. I do it on parchment and a spatula because I want to make sure they are both setting up before I start working with them. So I'm going to quickly polish this one. I'll polish these. Our molds are ready to start putting chocolate. I'm going to put my chocolate in a piping bag. This is a pretty good sized piping bag. I don't know, 18-inch piping bag. You can use a nice container, something that can hold it up high. Okay, I'm not going to put it in there just yet. I need to make sure this is going to set. And you definitely don't want to put it in the fridge. You're going to be like, well, what if I put it in the fridge and it sets up in the fridge? No, that's not a good test, because all that means is that it can set up in the fridge, and this has fat in it. It's going to set to a point. What you want to make sure is that it's going to stay nice and snappy. So what we're going to do is, once it's dry, I'm going to look at it and make sure there's no streaks. So I'm just going to review that really quick. Is I put 500 grams of chocolate, dark chocolate, in this bowl. I just had reserved about 200 grams off to the side. Got it up to 45 degrees over the bain-marie, made sure it was at 45, added a little bit of the cowlettes, little at a time, until it fully melted and reached 32. So it's only been a few minutes, and look, it is setting. Isn't that cool? So we're good to go. This one is also setting, not fully because we started it a little bit later. It's starting to get drier on the outside and it works its way. Definitely tell that little side bits are already nice and hard. That means it's crystallizing, and I've got my temper. Oh, there you go. It's set. How quickly was that? That was wonderful. That means I did a pretty decent job on this chocolate. Not too bad at it, eh? This is the fun part. Ooh, that beautiful stuff here. Again, I'm not gonna use it all. Okay, so I'm just gonna take my bag of tempered chocolate, and I think we're gonna start with the big guys. Why not? So when I pipe it in, I love this little ring, just so I can keep it straight. I'm just keeping this tray under here, so in case I spill, I'm gonna snip that tip. Not a whole lot, that's about a 1/2 inch. I'm gonna show you, I'm just gonna start just piping it in here. I'm gonna put a good amount. I'm gonna tuck the tail. That prevents it from going everywhere. And I'm just gonna start bringing this mold, the chocolate, all around. I always love this part. In a circle, and watch all that beautiful chocolate. Quite mesmerizing. I could kind of get lost in it. The most important thing, especially if you're using a mold like this, or anything that's gonna conjoin, you wanna make sure you exceed the edges just a little bit, because you need something for them to stick to, because I'm gonna be doing a double, like the 2 eggs are gonna come together. Once I get it nice and coated, I'm gonna let it rest for a second and just let it kind of cool, and then I'm gonna grab my second one. Just make sure you pinch the bag like that so it doesn't leak out. I'm gonna pipe in it again, nice amount of chocolate. The best way not to get upset with your chocolate is to contain it. If you can contain it, then it doesn't get everywhere. I'm gonna let this sit for a second, and I'm gonna go back to my other, and it's already starting to set up. But I still have a good amount. I'm just gonna move it around. I want this thick enough that it is strong enough to hold up. I'm gonna go ahead and, I love this part. Right back in the bowl. Now we are going to flip it. And we're gonna set it right down and keep it elevated on an edge. You wanna make sure that the air can flow around. Also, if you set it straight down, the chocolate is gonna adhere to your Silpat mat, and when you pull it up, it actually can pull some of your chocolate and break it. So we don't want that to happen. We've put a lot into these to make sure that they're perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and dump. I'm gonna take and put my eggs both in the same direction to start. Once I clean them, once it starts to harden a little bit, I'm gonna give it a nice little scrape, my scraper, and then I'm gonna rotate it to the other side. And that's just to make sure that it's not getting heavy and thick on one side. So my chocolate, before it starts setting up on me, I'm gonna do the same thing with these. I'm gonna fill them. I'm just gonna give them a rock. Same thing, just rock them around. I'm gonna give them a second, and I'm gonna do the other ones. I'm really splattering here. Again, we're gonna do the exact same thing, just moving it around. Now, the most important thing about this one, it has so many details that we wanna gently tap it or pat it. What that does is it'll make sure it gets into all the little nooks and crannies. When you pull it away, it has little air bubbles. That looks really ugly. So what I'm gonna do, now these are getting pretty thick. It's moving a lot slower. Get it back in here. First, I'm gonna scrape it, because I'm at an angle. My little pot is not all different directions, and the reason I do that is to make sure I got every spot. Now I'm gonna move this one over, and I'm gonna check, oh, that's setting up nicely. I'm gonna do the exact same thing. Before it gets too hard, we wanna take our scraper, and we just wanna clean that edge off. If we try to do this when it's super hard, it's going to break. So all my chocolate's going back in, but when I put it, I'm gonna try to get it right back into the chocolate I'm working with. I'm really not that chill. I just know I've got to be calm when working with my chocolate. Now, when we get to ganache, it's a whole nother ball game. So I'm gonna let these set. I'm gonna keep an eye on these, because I scraped these ones down, but I haven't scraped these, so I don't wanna ignore them. The next thing we're gonna do is do our ganache. You need a nice heavy pot. This one's only a 1 quart. I love it. It's super great. Most important thing is nothing with stainless or non-stick, sorry. Same thing with your chocolate. When you have your bowl, don't use anything that's got the non-stick. It tends to make things splatter. Also, you could have like a residue in it that'll get into your chocolate. So you always want to make sure that your pots and pans, everything are super clean when you're doing that. I'm going to take some cream. This is a heavy cream, a 40% milk fat. It's really important that you use something that has a little bit higher milk fat in it, or not just only. You don't want the water. Again, I said water and chocolate are nemesis, so you don't want that to happen. I'm going to add in my pot all my cream. Now I don't want to scald my cream, so I don't want it on like super high. Then what I'm going to add to my cream is glucose. Glucose is really important. It makes it so that your ganache is super shiny and has a nice fluidity to it. If you don't have glucose, you can use like a simple syrup, like a Caro's or something. It's just the consistency might be a little bit different. I'm adding that to it. So I'm gonna stir that. I want the glucose and the cream to completely mix together before I pour it over my chocolate. And I'm gonna use the same chocolate as I did for my tempered chocolate. I am using a 60% dark, using 250 grams of heavy cream, okay, to 500 grams of chocolate. This is a simple recipe. It's a 2-to-1 ratio. So I'm gonna check this. I don't want it to get too hot. I'm gonna bring it up a little bit more before I forget. I need to test. We're gonna scrape those off so that they'll adhere nicely together. Same with this. They're coming together very, very well. Okay, that should be hot enough. Oh yeah, we're hot enough. So these are actually nice and set, pretty good. So I'm gonna go off to the side just to set them for a second. Those I don't necessarily wanna put in the fridge, but this one does need to go into the fridge because it's gonna stay hollow. So I'm gonna pop this into the fridge, just right over here. I'm going to pour my cream right over my chocolate. My cream got really nice and hot. Not quite a boil, but it was really steaming. We're just gonna give it a second. I like to have some patience. I like to let the heat of the cream start melting the chocolate before I start stirring. The quicker I stir, it's gonna start cooling down the cream, and I want it to fully melt. So if I rush it, then it may not come together all the way. You can already see it's starting to melt nicely. Now for this one, there's a couple different ways you can do it, but I like to start off just using a spatula and making sure that my chocolate is coming together. Now you can use an immersion blender. That works really nice, especially with dark chocolate. Or if you don't have an immersion blender, you can take your spatula, make sure it's nice and bendy. You can stick it right down all the way to the bottom of the bowl and start stirring it like a whirlpool. And you can see it will actually come together just fine that way. Or if you do want to use an immersion, make sure that it is down all the way to the bottom. You don't want to bring a lot of air into it. I'm just going to do this on a low. I like to go nice and slow. Don't want to get a lot of air, so keep it all the way submerged. If it starts to get thick, you can go up higher. The more it blends, the shinier and thicker it's going to get. I'm going to use my spatula, just scrape it down. I don't want any of the cream up on the sides. We want to make sure that it is thick, but still fluid, because I'm going to pipe these in. That is yummy. I'm tempted to just lick it, but that wouldn't be very hygienic now, would it? The most other important thing, if I pipe in ganache that is like, 32 or higher, this is at 34, what can happen is that my chocolate will bloom. And what blooming means is where it's too hot and the cocoa butter releases. And if the cocoa butter releases, it's going to stick to your mold. And that is one quick way to want to lose your temper, because it doesn't come out. I'm gonna go ahead and bag this up. It's at 34. I need it to get a little cooler, but I'm gonna show you a really cool trick. Parchment bag, always roll back the top. That way you have a nice clean section. If you aim for the middle and keep this clean and you roll it back, it doesn't end up all over you. So I'm gonna put it back inside my container, cleaning up because I wanna keep a calm environment. And so what we're gonna be filling first is our small molds. I want to get those done first because they need to get quickly into our fridge. And the fridge isn't going to set it, it's going to cause it to constrict or pull away from the mold. We want it to do that. It's at 31.8. I'm gonna pour it right in. Another, oh, look at that. Okay, well, doesn't always go perfect, right? Plus I don't have my glasses on. Oh, God, that breaks my heart. And see, look what I also did. I'm gonna stay calm, no losing my temper here. I'm gonna kind of scrape back. I just got a little spoon, scrape it back down. Really important because I don't wanna wear chocolate today. And if I let it come up the top, that's kind of what's gonna happen. I'll let it cool. If it's too hot, when you get it in the bag, you can kind of rest it. I normally like prop it up on something and let it cool down that way. You saw nothing. Magic, it's gone. So while I'm letting my ganache cool a little bit, I'm gonna use something. Oh, this is a salted caramel. It is made with obviously sugar, some butter, heavy cream, and salt. We're gonna be covering that on our sugar episode, so make sure to join us on that one too. Before I put my ganache in, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use some Maldon salt. I like it because it's a nice flake, it's coarse, and it doesn't dissolve super fast, which means when you bite into that truffle, you get that little crunch. Really nice. I'm just gonna sprinkle some in here inside each shell. I'm gonna pour this in. Now this is thick, but it needs to be thick because I don't wanna wait all day for it to thicken inside my shell. Also, I know it's perfectly cool, so it's not gonna throw my chocolate out. I'm gonna snip. Always pay attention to where that little tip comes off. You don't want it landing back inside your mold. I'm gonna start off by piping some caramel inside my eggs. Boy, I have so much of it I don't wanna waste. My daughter will eat that. She's obsessed with caramels. So I'm just gonna give it a tap. And the reason I'm tapping is I don't want any air bubbles to be inside my truffles. Air pockets can trap bacteria, and that's no good. Now I have my ganache. I'm gonna snip the tip again, about a 1/2 inch. I'm gonna pipe in. I'm gonna make sure it's pretty full. I'm gonna tap it. Now, if you accidentally get some ganache, make sure you get that ganache off your chocolate. We are gonna flip these, and if you have ganache between your chocolate, it won't stick. They won't grip on. So we wanna make sure that you have no ganache on your shell. Let those sit for a second while I clean up my mess. So what we're gonna do now that our ganache is piped in and set, we are gonna add some tempered chocolate just across the top. And what it's gonna do is foot or seal the truffle. I'm gonna use my scraper and I'm gonna scrape it gently back into my bowl. Just wanna make sure it's nice and flat and that there's no ganache peeking. So that's how you seal it. We're gonna pop these into the fridge to get them to release. So now we just have to wait, another patience thing. So we have to wait for our chocolate to fully harden inside the fridge. And then once it's completely constricted, those crystals have fully formed, then we should be able to knock them out. So fingers crossed, that's what happens. I'm gonna go ahead and tidy up so that we can have a reveal. All right, let me bring over, straight out of our fridge, our big guys. So they've already released, I can see that because there's no hard spots, or no wet chocolate. You can't see it attached at all to the mold. That's really important. You don't wanna remove it or force it from your mold. So this is already, I can see, completely released. If you have to, use something to just lightly tap, and sometimes that'll release if it's attached at all. We're gonna go in, yeah, it's coming right out, and voila. So what we have is that beauty. Pretty. I'm so excited for Easter, and this one's super pretty too. Now I'm always wearing gloves. You'll notice when I'm working with chocolate, one, it's a habit because I obviously make stuff for people. It's good hygiene practices. But also I don't want to get spots, fingerprints all over my chocolate. That's the quickest way to make your chocolate treat really unappealing. So to get these to set together, we need some metal to heat up. And I think a tray is the best thing you can use. It gets nice and warm, and you can get a nice flat surface. We can use this. I'm gonna set it inside the bowl with protection so it doesn't get scuffed. And I need to quickly get the heat because you always have to have some fire, right? Oh yeah. I just heat up my surface. I want it to be nice and hot because the first thing I want to do is gently heat this side. That does two things. It'll make your adhering surface nice and smooth, and it'll also make it so that your chocolate has melted just enough so it can grab itself again. It can reattach. I'm gonna go ahead and put that down. I don't want to keep it in one spot too long because I don't want to lose my edge. I think I'm lined up. There we are. That's how you end up with your nice big egg. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay, so that's how you make a large Easter egg. Now I'm going to show you, hopefully our truffles are going to turn out delicious. I'm going to grab them right out of the fridge. I'm just going to give it a gentle flip. And then I'm going to use something to tap it. Remember, I want to release. Hold your breath. Aren't those gorgeous? Oh my gosh. Those are so pretty. Aren't they so pretty against the white? Well, I've had fun. I hope you had fun going along with me as I made these beautiful eggs. And we can't finish without tasting, right? So to taste them and actually to have an unbiased opinion, the best person to bring up is my daughter. This is my 13-year-old Sydney. Come on up. Now this kid critiques everything I make, and sometimes I hit, sometimes I don't. Don't make me lose my temper by saying it's gross, kid. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna give this a try. Okay, first you gotta have a hot knife. This thing is strong. Nice. We're gonna do some knife skills in a future one. Come on up, kiddo. Don't be scared. It's just chocolate with a knife. It's ooey gooey. God, that looks delicious. Look at that, you guys. Isn't that beautiful? All right. 1, 2, 3. Cheers. Bye. Oh. Mm-hmm. That's the stuff. All right. Now, can I give you your Easter present early? All right. Here we go. You want the egg? Here you go. You want it? I gotcha. We're not gonna lose our temper. So if you like this and you wanna follow along, you can like, follow, subscribe to Don't Lose Your Temper, or you can check me out on social media at Delightful Chocolat. That's DLITEFULCHOLAT, like chocolat, on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time. Oh my God, that is amazing, you guys. Did it go out good? Oh my God.